Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to another episode of the Bespoke Show. The Bespoke Show is a platform where we pick contemporary topics and get experts to debate on those topics. And our mission is to reach quality content globally. Sidba Liga and myself are the co-hosts of this show. Before we start the main topic, let me first introduce the panelists for today. We have Mr. Vijay Mistri. He is the CEO of Renter Director Limited. He is also the global partner of the Xylem Group. For over 2 decades, Vijay has assisted many businesses of all sizes and sectors globally. He was formerly a board member of the UK Policy Governance Association in London, and he is now a policy governance consultant. He is very passionate to see businesses of all sizes drive growth through diversity and having clear governance structures in place. Welcome to the show, Vijay Mistri.
Thank you very much, Asha. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored to be on the Bespoke Show. Thank you.
Thanks for joining. We also have Vijay Srinivasan. He's a very experienced FMCG professional. He's been associated with many reputed brands, most important of which are the Reckitt and the Health Planet. He believes that starting careers through field sales is the best way to be efficient in running businesses. And he has navigated through family businesses, becoming corporates, and tiding through difficult situations such as the global financial crisis. And he's been a key player in driving both bottom line and top line growth. Thank you so much for joining, Vijay Srinivasan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Asha. Thanks for inviting. It's a privilege to be with other esteemed members on this panel.
We also have today Mr. Sohin Shah. He is the Executive Director of Renter Director Limited. Over the past 2 decades, Sohin has worked for many industries in different sectors at a senior executive role. He has also been an active board member, helping various boards in making highly effective decisions. He is passionate to see companies adapt easily to rapid global changes and having a strong leadership pipeline. Welcome to the show, Sohin.
Thank you, Asha. It's a privilege to be on the show. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining. Let me put the topic in context first. Today we are here to debate about what kind of role SMEs play in the national economy at various countries. For example, in India, MSME sector statistics show that there are about 63 million MSME units in India, and they contribute something like 6% to the manufacturing GDP and 24% to the service GDP. So this shows the kind of contribution that they make, not just to the GDP, but also in terms of exports and employment opportunities. So MSME segment in India is a very key player. And today we are fortunate to have 3 experts from 3 different countries actually. Sohin is from Kenya, Vijay Mistri is from UK, and Vijay Srinivasan is from New Zealand. So it will be nice to understand what kind of MSME representation each of these countries have, and what's the culture of the MSME players in each of these countries. So if I may start with you, Vijay Mistri, you can share a few insights about the MSME segment itself in the UK.
Yes, thank you, Asha. Yes, I'll just give you a little bit of a perspective from the UK perspective itself. And according to a House of Commons document, it's a white paper. There were about 5.9 million companies in the private sector here in the UK. And this was around December 2019. I know things might have changed at this particular point in time because of the pandemic we are facing globally. But 5.9 million was the total construct of the private sector, out of which 5.6 million, and I'm just giving you round figures here, 5.6 million had employees between 0 and 9, 211,000 had employees between 10 and 49, 36,000 companies had employees between 50 to 249, and 8,000 had employees over 250. So that just gives you a broader perspective of the significant portion of contribution to the whole overall economy up here. And there was an employment of about 27.5 million as of December 2019 in this particular private sector as such. And just to, I mean, your question about the culture itself, I mean, if we really look at the common pattern of culture, it's basically with obviously the core intention to see the growth and to scale up and obviously employ more people and increase towards the pipeline and the success of the organization. So that's just a general consensus. I'm sure we'll dig deeper as we move forward. But for now, I just wanted to share this particular outline with you.
Thank you so much for those articulate statistics. They're very interesting. Vijay Srinivasan, would you like to take this from your country's perspective?
Yes, so it's very interesting statistics from Vijay Mistri, but it's very similar. I mean, it is quite a. I mean, New Zealand, where we live, is a place which is dominated by small businesses. Anyway, there's just a few companies which are actually quite large here, which are New Zealand owned. Most of them are multinationals with small presence, and the majority of the businesses in this country is made up of small businesses, and that could even include, like Mr. Vijay Mistri was saying, that it could be from 0 to 9 kind of employees to about 15 to 20 employees. So that would be the bulk of the industries in New Zealand right now. And one of the surprising things that they find is that the small businesses and the MSMEs are the backbone of this country. So it's not usually the large ones, it's usually the smaller ones which actually contribute quite a lot. And so that is the way to success, and that's how the governments have been working. The policies have been geared more towards small and medium-sized industries, and that's how they plan to even get out of even the post-COVID-19 impact, is by providing stimulus to all the small and medium enterprises in this country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sohin, your take on this?
I think as far as Kenya is concerned, from back of my hand, I can tell you very, very frankly, 90% of the economy is, in terms of labor or labor force, is employed by the MSME. Okay, and if you think about it, by the past data, we have over 7 million MSMEs contributing to just about 14.7 million jobs in this economy already, and that was in 2016. Okay, the new figures are yet to be out, but I know it would have increased by, say, around 30% thereabouts. Okay, but we know that our population is coming to around 48 million as per the last census. Okay, now I know you'll be asking why that there is a big lag between the 14 and the 48. Yeah. But the biggest component here is a lot of this labor force is employed in farming, and there is another majority of them who are unregistered completely. They do not fall in any category. So automatically this would fall in the MSME, and that's why the bottom line is that 90% of the labor force is employed in the MSME, and this is the sector that actually alleviates the economy from poverty and actually contributes a major proportion to development. The aspect of GDP contribution of this sector is a major proportion. As per the statistics, again, it is coming to over 75% at this stage in Kenya. So these are very interesting statistics, and at this current stage, this is where the issues are arising, and a lot of work needs to be done on how to support these MSMEs post in the COVID times, and when we cross over to the normalcy phase, and further on to helping that post-COVID. Thank you, Asha.
Very interesting, Sohin. I think the statistics that all of you have shared speaks volumes of what a critical role MSMEs play in our national economies, right? Irrespective of which country we are in. But we all know today there is an invisible but very powerful crisis that has struck the world globally and brought the global economy to a grinding halt. And one of the most hit sectors today is the MSME segment. It's, at least that's what it is in India, but I'm sure you'll be sharing more insights from your respective perspectives. So it'll be interesting to debate what kind of challenges MSMEs are facing. I'm sure they have already been facing enough challenges even pre-crisis, but post-crisis, I think it has only gotten worsened, right? So it'll be interesting to put things in perspective on what are the, let's say, the three major challenges that MSMEs face in each of the countries. Again, I would like to start with Vijay Mistri.
Thank you, Asha. This particular COVID-19 basically has sort of shaken people to their roots. It's shaken organizations completely to the roots. It's not even a wake-up call. This has gone deeply to the core of many organizations, and what's seemingly happening is that because it's like a void, it's just like we were having this discussion earlier, that just like everybody's having these employee appraisals every year, this is like a global appraisal. And this period of 2 or 3 months or 4 months, I hope that this really sort of is contained. But the whole nature of what's been happening has never been experienced in, I don't know whether it's decades or centuries, but it's a huge impact globally. And if we look at some of the key challenges which some of these MSMEs face, I would say the first and foremost is being directionless. They do not have a clear sense of direction. And what's happening is that, and I'll give you a different perspective because it's more to do with the mindset. And here's my take on it, that we all have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day, and we do. And what happens is your thoughts lead to the choices that you make. Your choices lead to the behavior that you have. Your behavior creates the experience, and the experience produces the emotions and feelings. Now that cycle is what we consider to be a loop. It's like that comfort point which people are in, and they are trapped in that particular, I would say, that particular cycle. What I'm trying to really say here is that there's this one place where people do not know what direction they need to go. And this is the biggest key challenge when we are talking about. Number two, I mean, and I am sure that Sohin and Vijay will agree on this one, is this cash problem that they have, the liquidity, acute liquidity problem. Overheads keep on running. In fact, even yesterday evening, I was speaking to one hairdresser, small boutique entity, and he was telling me that, look, I've got my overheads which I have to pay, and I've got a couple of staff whom I have to pay, but it's so difficult at this time. They don't have that liquidity in place. And the same with another construction organization whom I was speaking to, same sort of problem. So these are common challenges. The third key challenge I would really say is the disconnect that they are having with the stakeholders, I would say. So what they were doing before, whatever the business as usual they were having, they are having this disconnect because they're completely lost, like the first point which I raised, which was directionless. And all this is culminating to a fact that there's a lot of stress, and there's this common consensus of what is next, what's going to happen next. And you know that many have lost jobs globally. I mean, the figures are just unbelievably high globally. And this in itself is causing this core disconnect. It's leading to a lot of stress. It's leading to a lot of anxiety. People don't know what the future is going to hold for many of the MSMEs here in the UK. Asha?
Yeah, interesting. I guess the problem is very similar to what it is in India. I think they're the ones that are struggling hard to get represented in the various schemes of funding that are being arranged by the government even today. Vijay Srinivasan, are things different from your country's perspective, or more or less the same?
It's more or less the same. I think it's a global issue. One of the things is, just like Mr. Vijay Mistri was talking about, cash flow is a big problem. And it's basically the liquidity. It's like we have not foreplanned, we have not planned for the future kind of thing. And of course, nobody expects such kind of disruptions. But in a way, these disruptions do come every 4 or 5 years, whether they come through financial crisis or they come through a pandemic, they are there to stay. But I guess it's easy. I mean, you can't blame anybody for it, or you can't do anything, because it's easy to slip into that it will not happen. And a thing like this strikes. So that is one of the biggest issues, and I think the government here is also seriously looking at it, because New Zealand really survives heavily on MSMEs and small scale industries more than the big ones. And of course, it's also the lack of preparedness, I would say, in a way. Like, for example, a lot of businesses which were offline could have been online also. There's nothing stopping them to be having that multiple channels going at the same time. So I guess this is a learning curve, a lot of introspection for a lot of people. People are starting to understand that there is a way out of this. And, just by ordering in supermarkets, people have got over that barrier that we can do e-commerce. And it's not an impossible thing. So, yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks, Sasha.
Nice. Very important points actually there. We'll come more to those omni-channels and leveraging on technology. We'll talk more about it in the coming sessions. Sohin, how are things in Kenya?
The biggest challenge that we are facing in Kenya is because of this pandemic, the demand for these MSMEs is completely disappeared. And they basically don't know, as Vijay said, there's no direction on what they can do towards this. They were never prepared for this. And another bigger challenge is lack of information, credible information as to how far this pandemic is going to go, how much is the effect rate. There is a bit of scarcity of information. Whatever the government is giving, yes, they are giving daily updates, which is fantastic. And I commend it for them for doing that. But, it's based on a single assumption, is that this is based on tested cases. There is no further information on that. So there is a lot of fear in the market. So people have completely gone out of buying the non-essentials. So a lot of MSMEs that one catering for the non-essentials, like the Juwakali business, they're out of the business completely. Then therein lies another issue that is there, and that is accessibility to credit. Vijay already highlighted that in UK. Here it is crazy, because there is no funds that they can apply to really. The credit they can access to, the minimums, is so expensive. I can tell you, some of the funds, some of the like the mobile credit that they're able to access, is costing them 3% a month. I mean, if you analyze that, it's 36% a month. It's practically, it's a pawn shop out there. I mean, so I could use more harsh words, but it's just not affordable. I mean, what are they going to do with that? How are they going to pay that back? So, and this is where they're going to. So this will be inherently, they will have a lot of debt in their hands, because they don't know what's going to come out of this at the end of the day. The third most important thing is, I mean, the way this thing has impacted, they are now at a stage of they are worried about the day. Majority of the population are catering for their day-to-day needs. Okay, so they don't know how are they going to feed their family in the next day. And this is affecting, I can say, 75 to 80% of the population. So it's gone, the issue has gone acute, and this is where we are trying to lobby, we're trying to work and see how the government can reach out to the various population and see how we can assist them. There needs to be systems in place to cater for the real vulnerable society out there. And this is one of the biggest challenge. Yes, there are communities that are coming together and doing the packages and supplying it and putting in the logistics to help these vulnerable society. And it's a real good thing that's going on. But it's really limited. One of the communities, one of the groups have managed to do 25,000 up to now. Okay, packages. They will reach maybe 50,000 in the next 2 weeks. But is that enough? I mean, I'm talking about 70% of the population. And one of the things that we are not realizing is that in Kenya, we were ravaged before the pandemic. We were being ravaged by the locusts. Okay, it destroyed all the crops in the region. Okay, now pandemic has come. They are not able to tend the fields. So again, food is another issue. It's just impounding onto the already existing problem. Then on top of all this, in the last 3 weeks, in the last couple of days, I can say, the weather has changed completely, in the sense it's been raining heavily. The Lake Victoria levels have gone to such a level that it's basically inundated fields of crops. The levels have gone to another level altogether, and they have never seen this kind of thing. So according to me, I just put it that the bottom line is nature is really fighting back.
Very distressing to hear that. I mean, so many calamities all at once. It's no joke to manage a situation like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, the point is that we can all sit around and say we blame the government, but this kind of calamities, one after the other. I mean, even if they wanted to do it, it's really insurmountable. So it's all about getting together and cutting out the blame game and getting out there to act, and that's what needs to be done.
I think that's a very valid point. I think now is not the time to pass the buck or blame people. I think it's a time to see how we can all come together and do the best that we can. Maybe, as many people are suggesting, global solidarity and a global unity is what's going to drive a crisis like this. Maybe individual countries trying to manage it on their own, I don't think is good enough at this point, right?
One of the things that I admire and I read about and I listen to it, and that is how the Indian continent, the Indian country has managed to actually implement the lockdown, and how they've managed to support. We must appreciate that the leaders have done their bit in that country, and I can tell you for a fact that country will come out very fast out of this issue. And they will grow out of this, because people are already seeing that in the times of need, the country is coming out to help others. Okay, where here we are. Okay, I cannot say that our country has been able to implement such kind of strict regimes, because of course there are certain limitations that they are trying to work on, and we also have to be patient with them. So I think that's what we are doing. But there is, at least we aspire that. There is a country that has been able to do that, and we're just watching to see how fast they'll come out of it, and hopefully they'll come and help our country over here.
Right, I really hope so too. For example, I think yesterday I was watching in the news about this new plasma therapy, where people are actually, the patients who have come out of this crisis are actually donating blood to help other patients recover faster. And I heard that there are about 5 states that have already started to implement this, but obviously getting donors will be a challenge. But I was watching interviews with a couple of donors. Obviously, they have a very big heart, and that's very interesting to see India pioneering something like that. It makes us feel proud. Just going back to, I think, what Vijay Mistri was saying about, the problem is, I think, it was unexpected and we did not have a direction. And we don't have a direction even today for that matter. And Vijay Srinivasan was mentioning this very interesting point about the preparedness. Just a simple example that he pointed about small and medium traders getting into omni-channel business models will make a huge difference. So this could be a learning lesson, learned a hard way, but it could be a good learning lesson for many SMEs going forward to leverage on technology and get prepared for more such adversities that are bound to happen in the future. I mean, nobody is insulated from it. No country is insulated from it, right? So Vijay Mistri, if I were to pick your brain, what's the one point that the SME ecosystem should be working on to make sure that we are more prepared if something like this should happen again, let's say a few years from now, God forbid not, but it's always good to be prepared, right? So what do you think is the one thing that the ecosystem should work on at this point of time? Any thoughts?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, fantastic. All right, all right. The one single most thing right now for anybody listening to this particular show, very important message is to change the mindset. This is the most important concept. We have the online presence, and it's about shifting presence, as I put it. And when I'm talking about shifting presence, it's about shifting the mindset and the thought. Now here's just an example. I want to give a metaphor, and think of a koi fish. Put a koi fish in a fish bowl, and it will grow only 2 inches. Take the same koi fish, put it in a river, and it's going to grow 12 inches, about 1 foot. Yeah. And why is that so? It's because of the environment we are in. It's about being proactive. It's about looking at the opportunity. When one door closes, the second, third, fourth, fifth are opening. And right now, this is the time when people need to roll up their sleeves and have that urgency mindset, just like what Vijay Srinivasan said about preparedness. And just like the someone once said that chance favors the prepared mind. It's so important right now that impact will come from the people who are going to start taking action now. Be proactive, move, shift your presence from where you are, and see the different modalities and the mechanisms which are going to work for you, which are those opportunities out there. It doesn't matter whether it's disruption, it doesn't matter whether industries are really shaken up. I fully understand, I fully empathize. Many businesses globally are facing all these problems and challenges, but now is the time for them to really look into the core dimension and look into the navigational path for them to have that clear roadmap. This is the best time for them. Another sorry, I just want to add one more layer to what I've just said,
Please
which
feel
is
free.
which is very important. And again, I'm sure Sohin and Vijay Srinivasan mentioned this, and that is the preparedness of having this preparedness at all times. It's not that once the pandemic goes away and everything's fine and we've now got a vaccine and everything's working fantastic. That preparation, that having that contingency in place, having the buffers in place, that is what is very important. This is the place where people need to really sharpen themselves and move to another level altogether. Have that sinking fund, make sure that you look after your employees. This is the best time for some to recruit the best of the best team members as well. So it's a different ball game. This is where um, just like in a game of chess. And if you look at somebody like Bobby Fischer knew the opponent's 10th to 15th move. He called it the field of forces. And what this really means is that now you have to look into that, those signals that you're going to pick up. So that is where the impact is, and people need to look into that particular aspect of being proactive and move to another level altogether. Sorry, Asha, I took a bit
Yeah.
more.
No, that's fine. They're all very important points. So learn from the mistakes. Don't get into a situation of who moved my cheese, as many
Yes.
people have read that book. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Good points. Thank you, Vijay Mistri.
Welcome.
Vijay Srinivasan, obviously, I would like to hear from you on what one thing people should be thinking about to make sure that they don't put themselves into the same situation yet again. But do you also have a problem of migrant workers like we have in India, in the SMEs?
Not that much, but there are, because of the lack of population here for the farming and other construction industry, we do require people where we keep getting people from Philippines, Indonesia, and all those places where, they come in as construction labor. Now, unfortunately, many of them are stuck, but this is a very, like India also, this is a very, giving kind of a culture. So even the companies who have hired them, even though they can't afford them, they come with a lot of food. In fact, I saw it that day, people coming with a truck full of food and giving them enough food, which will actually last them a month. That kind of food, with buns and meat or whatever they eat. So, giving that stuff. So there is a slight, that kind of an issue. But more than that, it's more of a local issue, because New Zealand being small is more of a trading economy. So it cannot just manufacture and, it's not a consumption driven economy like India is or China is, kind of thing. They don't have the default of that. So they have to produce stuff to export. And when there is an issue like this, that it becomes a bigger issue as you go forward. And I think the way out is, the good thing is, first of all, India is doing extremely well in the way they are working on COVID-19. And I would like to add that New Zealand also is doing extremely well. Next Tuesday, we'll be going down a level. So it's actually very encouraging. Like, they have completely flattened the curve. They have quarantined people, and people are quite disciplined. They do understand. People are maintaining their their physical distancing, as they call it. And, yeah, and then so hopefully we should be getting out quite quickly from here.
Yeah, interesting. So if you were to suggest, or if somebody watching this show, if we should be putting forth one suggestion for the ecosystem to be more prepared in the coming months, what could it be? Like Vijay Mistri was mentioning, that it's recruiting the right people. So is it something that the government should be working on, or is it something like the leadership from the SME ecosystem itself, or is it something to do with the employees being more dynamic and upskilling themselves to be able to rise up to challenges? What do you think would be?
I think it's a combination. Sorry, I think it's more of a combination of all three.
Okay.
But it also lies in the hand of the employees, obviously, to upskill themselves so that they are ready for the next market, because these kind of disruptions have become all too often. I mean, either it comes in as a GFC, your global financial crisis, or it comes as a pandemic, or it'll come as something else going forward. Hopefully not, but in all chances, the way we have worked with nature and with global warming coming up, there are more chances of other kind of things happening. So it's better to be prepared than to be caught unprepared for that. So one of the things is they have to upskill. But the main thing, I think, is with the leadership teams of MSMEs and small scale industries, is mainly because they have to be future prepared. Now, in this worst of times, there is a bright side that once you are locked in, at least you have time to introspect of what you can do and what you can't do. This is the best time where you have, like Mr. Vijay Mistri was saying, a very smart thing, about employing very capable people. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, who have lost jobs, but they are extremely capable people and they're already in the market. So if you can contact them or pick their brains or, take them as contractors or whatever, you will only benefit, because they are passionate about building your company as much as you are, because they want to prove themselves before they move to the next organization, and hopefully they don't. But, so these are the things that you need to pick brains of, because it's not that one person comes with all the ideas. Usually, if you see even the Ambanis of the world, they're very clear that they don't employ smart people so that they can go and tell them what to do. They employ smart people so that they can do, because they are smart, and then they can handle your business and they're passionate about it. Give them enough freedom, give them enough authority, they will come up with solutions, and extremely good solutions. So there are a lot of very good people and capable people already in the market right now. So this is the time where, you can make your move, so as to say.
True. I think the team speaks for your performance at the end of the day. No one person can be good at everything, so it all depends on how you surround yourself with the best in every space, and working together can deliver the desired results. So in coming to you about the situation in Kenya, you were mentioning that farming is one of the more dominant sectors amongst the MSME space. So what kind of a labor structure do you have there? Is it more local, or do you also have migrants working there? And again, I would like to ask you the same point about what I asked Vijay and Vijay. What do you think is the one thing that people should work on to make sure that they don't get caught unawares if this was something similar were to happen again?
So I'll tell you, there are a number of sectors we are talking about here in the farming sector. So if you talk about floriculture, the horticulture, it's more to do with large scale farmers, and they employ close to over 100, thousands of workers. Mostly the farms are between 1,200 to 1,500 workers, right? And then we have the other small-scale farms that do employ, but if you look at it cumulatively, they occupy almost 60-65% of the labor force. Okay, so when you look at the whole thing right now, the biggest problem which we are facing is that in the horticulture we were dependent on the European markets. That's gone. There are very few who are actually are still opening up. So that's a positive thing that's happening. Because certain countries in the Europe are opening up, like for example Sweden is placing orders. But I think one of the lessons that I learned from this, that a lot of companies are learning, is not to depend completely on the flori market, right? There needs to be diverse products that are being generated from these farms, and they are now looking at a lot of beans and such kind of things that can actually help not only the local economy but can be also exported. The other aspect that which the developing countries like Kenya need to work on is actually extracting the value from the products in terms of conversion. And this is where I always say that there needs to be a lot of effort being put in, not only in growing but also on the entire supply chain, from supplying to the converters and the manufacturers. There needs to be a lot of support given to that part of it, and then arriving at the final product, which can then be sold as a final product to the market in the form of overseas shelves or local shelves, be the case may be. And this is where the value can then be derived from the entire process. Because what we have seen is that we are not driving the value. We are selling it at the cents, whereas the dollars are being generated elsewhere. So this is a major issue that needs to be worked on. A lot of support needs to be deployed on the logistics part in terms of creating the suitable infrastructure. And that is not there at this stage. I mean,
so you have a good percentage of exports then?
Yes, we do. We do have a lot of exports, but again, it's all in the primaries. There is no secondary product that is being exported.
Okay.
So this is where the thing is. It's different. Like for example, in New Zealand, I know for a fact that they actually, when they do the milk, for example, they actually extract it and transform it to the finished product, and which is then further on exported and sold. Whereas here, the basic product, be it the tea leaves, they're not even processed in Kenya. They're processed outside. So although yes, we do supply a lot of varied markets, be it Pakistan, India, Europe, and all that, but we are not driving the value. So
the value addition is not happening at the source.
And the reason behind this is that there is not adequate support given to the manufacturing and the logistical entities. And therein can be the creation of more jobs, and therein the agenda of development can be pushed to, and the envelope of development can be pushed forward. So this is very important. Another key issue is adoption of technology. yes, we are the trailblazers of the world in terms of, if you know, we were the ones who started off the M-Pesa. You must be aware of that. We were the ones who actually generated that idea, and now it's being taken up across the world. I mean, the other day I heard about what Jio is doing in India.
Yes.
And it's phenomenal. I mean, if that kind of how do you say, collaboration is going to happen, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big thing as we go along. Now, therein lies the intricate insights. If our countries are going to capture the technology and innovation from the word go, and going to be expanding and moving out further on this issue, we are going to succeed. Then another important issue that I must tell you is that a lot of our brain power has been exported to the various countries out there. I know it's happening in India as well, but
yes,
here it's more so, because a lot of the graduates who come out from the universities do end up either staying where they are, or they are educated in Kenya and then they go abroad to seek the jobs. Now, this is what the pandemic has actually taught us. A lot of these diaspora inflows are actually going down, and this is what is impacting on the local exchange. You know, it's gone up in a matter of 3 weeks. We shot up from 101 to 106.5, and it's going up further. It's going up to 100, 108. I'm talking about the shilling to the dollar. Simple one. I know it's because of there are certain things relating to the dollar being
devalued.
Yeah, but as such, the currencies of the African continent are devaluing. The main reason is we are exporting our talent. Okay, then these inflows that were coming in, the diaspora income has suddenly stopped because the external economies are almost grounding to a halt. So they will first look at how can I cater for my own self here where I am, and then send what I can back to the family or back for investment in the home country. So this is a clear issue that we are grappling with. The diaspora income has not stopped as such. It's good. It's coming, trickling in, but it's dropped. It's dropped massively, and this is what is impacting the economy as such. So what my point and what I'm driving to is, if our economy is generating that talent, right? Why don't we work towards retaining that talent, creating that opportunities in the home country, for making sure that these guys are back there in the country generating that income? I can tell you for a fact, and we are talking to a number of people out there, they all want to come back because, I mean, look at it. The weather here is fantastic. We don't need an AC to live in Kenya. We have a natural AC. I mean, it's fantastic. Yes, I know it's a bit cold right now and it's raining, but let me tell you, across the year, it's fantastic weather. Okay, those are just one thing. The kind of culture that is there in this part of the country, it's so warm. Sorry, I'm not saying that it's not it's cold the other countries, but we are hospitable people. So I mean, it just shows that there are so many reasons for these guys to wanting to come back. But what are we doing to support these young people to remain here? Therein lies the biggest question. Asha.
Awesome insights from you, Sohin. It's a very macro level analysis from you, and I hope the right people get to watch these insights that you have shared, and we can make a difference at some point. We'll try and get there. At this point, I think there are two interesting topics that we actually covered. One is what's the face of the MSMEs in each of the countries at a national level, A, and B, what kind of challenges they're facing at this point of time, not just because of the COVID-19, but even before the crisis happened. I'm just wondering, and I would like to start this with Vijay Mistri. Do you think the MSMEs can represent themselves in a more stronger way if they were to move out of a family-owned structure to, let's say, a corporate culture, not just legally, but also in terms of having professionals working in the organization, succession planning outside of the family, corporate governance in terms of the way the decisions are taken, because most board decisions in MSMEs, as far as I know, is taken in lunch rooms and family dining tables. So obviously that's not the best way forward for a sustainable future, right? So do you think corporatization is a way forward for MSMEs to strengthen themselves and also leverage on many of the advantages that the global corporations enjoy in terms of digitization, in terms of leadership, and in terms of technology? Do you think it'll make a difference if they were to move in the direction of corporatization?
Thank you, Asha. I definitely think that having the right structure in place, and if this MSMEs consider looking at this mechanism of having a different uh, corporate structure altogether, it would definitely make a profound impact, and their voice will be heard, because it's a different uh, capability altogether. There's a different bench strength as well when you really look at it. When we look at the bench strength itself, because when just like what you mentioned about a single person making decision, or so there are certain limitations in that particular aspect. But when you scale it up to a corporate level altogether, there is a different level of capability which comes in, and that really impacts the growth and the sustainability as well. Having a professional team, having the right governance mechanisms. And by the way, anybody watching this particular show, I can even tell you, even if you're an MSME, you must make sure there is a core distinction between long term and short term for your particular organization, and link it up. It's not about having management meetings on a monthly basis, but it's also having a core distinction. But just Asha, just to add to what you've just said, this whole framework is very powerful and very important for organizations to have, to move up the ladder, because that is not only going to leverage growth, but like what you mentioned, succession planning itself is in play as well. The key, there's a small caveat to all this, and that is to be very careful about whom you select in your team. The diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, that diversity and the mindset itself, having that empowerment has to be there as well. So I believe, whether it's the UK or we look at any other territories as well, I personally believe that this is one of the best way to springboard and have your voice heard as well, because your all your affairs will change. There'll be regulatory frameworks in place as well, but it's going to be a different culture altogether, a culture of leadership, a culture of professionalism, a culture of best practice, and it will also position organizations. I just want to add one more point, that at this particular point, there may be certain MSMEs who would be sort of struggling to figure out how they would really step up the game. One thing which Sohin mentioned, which I really liked, and something I want to really extend upon, is the collaboration. Two companies getting together, merging together, and then working out a scheme of, stepping up the ladder itself. So that is another concept which people can really think, especially with this pandemic scenario. There is this opportunity, and having this corporate structure in form. So Asha, I hope I made some sense there.
Absolutely. But, I think that's the direction in which India is also going. I think a lot of MSMEs are actually trying to move on from a family structure to a corporate structure, or family structure can be as a sole proprietor or as a partnership. So they are actually trying to incorporate it as a company. In fact, some of my clients are actually looking to value their brand, so they're going a step forward. So I think it's a good step forward for MSMEs to start thinking of getting into a more professional structure, because I think that's going to ensure longer sustainability. Vijay Srinivasan, what's the culture like in MSMEs? They are mostly sole proprietors and or partnerships. How is it, or do they already have formed limited companies?
It's thanks, Asha. It's basically a combination of single owners versus partnership owners.
Okay.
They have a combination across industries here.
Okay.
But one of the things, just to add on to what Vijay Mistri was also saying, was what one thing I think MSMEs don't realize is that they're just not medium and small. All companies in the world today, if you see, all multinationals, all the biggest ones, all started as small companies. They all started as, then they moved on to a medium size level, and then they became large corporates. So it's not like everybody started straight away as a large corporate. I'll give you examples.
Yes,
For example, like Unilever. Yeah, Unilever started as the Lever brothers started it, and they used to go from home to home distributing soap detergent powder to people. So very similar to the Nirma story in India, where Karsan Bhai Patel used to go around, selling Nirma powder, washing powder to people. And now he's such a big entity today in the corporate circles. So all industries, all companies have started that way. So, and they've all gone through the same pain that everybody has gone through. They have grown with different kind of strategies, just like Vijay Mistri and Sohin Shah also mentioned that one is through collaborations. For example, there were takeovers of certain companies. For example, I used to work for a company called Reckitt Benckiser. It used to be called Reckitt and Coleman many years ago. Then the Benckiser family took over, so it became Reckitt and Benckiser, and then suddenly it added portfolio. Then it took over a company called Boots in the UK and got a lot of other brands, and then suddenly they were propelled as one of the major FMCG companies in the world. So, and they were actually a family-run company, which actually became part public, part family-run, where the family used to own a lot of split shares in the company. So there is a huge potential. So there is nothing to limit yourself that I am a medium-sized company, I'm a small company. But if, like Vijay Mistri said, if you have the vision and if you get the right people on board, very important to get the right people on board. And one of the key to success to all these big multinationals, if you see, is they have a massive corporate governance. There is a little bit of, like interaction with the original founders who sit on the board and everything else. But it's the day-to-day is left to professionals to run. And they're running it extremely profitably. If you see any of nobody can say that Unilever or Reckitt Benckiser or Procter & Gamble are not successful companies. They're extremely successful companies. But the fact being that they're being run by professionals. So that makes a lot of difference. Not saying that the founders are bad and the professionals are the best solution, but you could always find a gap, a bridge between both and work towards each one's strength and work towards it.
Very true, Vijay. Yeah. I mean, we are not holding anything against the founders. I think the fact that they have been able to build a business up to this level speaks volumes for their capabilities. But I think as the business moves on from one generation to another generation, obviously things keep changing, technology keeps evolving, and business models keep dynamic, competition landscape changes. So we need to keep adding people who can bring in diverse expertise to be able to tide through various situations. So that actually is
Asha, just one more thing I just wanted to add is there's a famous saying in especially in multinational, and I'm sure it's everywhere now. It's called steal with pride. Right. So this is a thing that you're taught with even when you're working in companies. It's basically, there's nothing wrong to steal ideas from other people. It's not like you're stealing their intellectual property. Right. But if somebody has done something smart, which is visible to you, say go to a supermarket, you see your competition has done some great job. You can also replicate that and see how that works for you. So these kind of learnings, the easiest way is to get it from professionals who worked in other industries. You straight away get so much knowledge without having to, go and do all the hard work for the next 25 years trying to figure that out, which that guy can bring within, minutes to your table and bring all his experience.
Absolutely. Everybody cannot be an innovator, but it makes a lot of sense to adopt the best practices across the sector.
Yeah.
So, in coming to you, I would like to understand a little bit of how the business evolves from first generation entrepreneur to second generation entrepreneur to third generation entrepreneurs, and then how do you see the transitions happening, or is it happening at all, from the family entrepreneurs to outside professionals, and if so, what kind of challenges both the MSMEs and the incumbent talent faces during the transition? Maybe you can throw some light on that.
Thank you, Asha. It's a very interesting topic, and this is the major challenge which a significant sector of a segment of the MSMEs are facing. Especially, let's put the micro aside. When we are talking about the medium-sized companies, there is a big challenge. I mean, what we aspire to, what we look at, and what we are inspired by is the founders. They have done a phenomenal job. They have done something which is build the company from scratch. Okay, they have touched upon and they worked with the employees from hand in hand. They've worked with, basically they've done it shoulder to shoulder. What the founders used to do is what the employees used to do. They have developed such a connect with the employees, and they're able to go forward. But of course, no one has the ability to continue forever. There has to be a point where the baton needs to be
handed over.
Put forward, handed over. But therein lies the biggest challenge, because when we talk about the second, forget about even second. Sometimes second are easily adaptable adapted to this, because they have also learned it from the hard way. Okay, from ground level. But the biggest issue starts with the generation Y and Z that are coming in and are looking at taking on the mantle of running the company. And my experience has been that there is a big dearth in this issue, and that therein lies the issue of capacity and the capability of running these companies. There needs a lot of investment need to be done in the form of enabling them to actually connect with the employees that are already running the show. This is where the right partners, the right leaders that need to be put in place in the company to take them to the next level. They need that assistance, and a lot of these incumbents who are coming in are not taking up the help which is available in the market, because a sole reason is sometimes they feel they've done the MBA. When I say MBA is Mane Badu Avde. So this is a big problem. This is a big issue that is there. Instead, I would say, listen, take the humble pie, take the assistance, and you will be able to take charge of the company. The other issue is when this baton needs to be handed over, it needs to be handed over in a very succinct, it's a process. It needs to be taken in a process whereby the incumbent need to be trained from the ground zero. The problem comes in when one of the incumbents come in and are given the golden spoon, as I call it. They do not know how to actually digest that completely, and there starts bringing the disconnect with the employees, and very quickly businesses can crumble in this kind of a scenario. So in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of companies can prosper by bringing the right professionals into the sector. Once the professionals are brought in, they need to be given the space. The biggest issue that there lies is because of the MBA kind of scenario, they always want to micromanage and interfere with the workings of the business. I have seen companies succeed phenomenally when given to a professional, corporatized way. When with the right set of governance put in place, companies can prosper, and the investors, the founders, can get what they are looking for it, be it value, be it dividends, whatever it is they want. Even it might be that they just want growth, or they want to leave a legacy behind it. This can be done when the governance and the professionals are put in place. I always say the companies that are run successfully are run by people, right? the four worlds or the machines are not going to run by themselves unless you bring in a robot that is going to run the whole thing on its own, which I have not yet encountered. They might be in the pipeline, but they cannot think for themselves. The commands need to be given by the human sitting behind there. Now, when the issue therein lies, again, what I'm trying to say is, and I'm coming to the conclusion, is that these companies, they need to respect the people running the companies there. Okay, they need to empower them, and once they have the values set in, and again I relate to it, that the right people need to be deployed for this to happen. Yes, that is not negotiable over there. Okay. When these right people are given the tools and they are empowered to take the charge and are given the authority, those companies will succeed. Okay? There is no doubt over there. But when these companies start bringing in the third generation, and then there is a lot of interference being played around, and there is a power game that's going on to show that which party is able to handle, there is a big mess that is going to be coming out over there. And this is going to be a big challenge for a lot of companies to handle as we go along. So the solution to all this is, let's work out on a way to corporatize this company, and also make sure that the third generation, who the baton needs to be handed over, are trained to handle this whole thing. This can be done, and I've seen that it's being done in several companies and working fantastically well. I mean, and these companies are growing to become conglomerates in very diversified sectors. So if that is happening, I'm sure other companies can actually take up this and adapt, as Vijay Srinivasan said. What is working in other companies can be able to be adapted in other companies that want to grow. Thank you, Asha.
So well said, Sohin. I think succession planning is a extremely challenging art, I would say. It's both an art and a science, because I think it's a three-way model. The person who is taking over, the person who is handing over, and the person above who is actually making this happen as an interface. I think what's important is an ambience or an environment has to be created whereby, like you rightly mentioned, the word that you used is a process. It is indeed a process. I think the way it should be handled is the incumbent has to be brought into the succession maybe a couple of years prior to his actually taking charge, and then he has to respect the founder's skills and abilities and try to learn everything that he has gone through over the years, and then slowly bring in his own skills. And in the meantime, I think that's the time for also the founders to prepare themselves to step back and hand over the baton to the incumbent. I think that's a really challenging process, and I think if MSMEs can use experts to actually manage this, I think they'll be doing a great job, because the outsiders can look at this very independently and not biased. So the decisions will probably be more result oriented, I would think. Thank you so much.
I just want to add one small point here, is that there are companies where there are the second generation who are currently handling it, but they don't have a succeeding third generation. And this is where the corporate governance and the professionalization of the companies can really help, because companies, there's a biggest problem that a lot of companies are facing, and we know the statistic. Only 3% of the businesses survive after the third generation. And the reason behind it is because there is really no succession planning in place. And let me tell you, with a lot of planning and thought in this process, if it's put in place correctly, a lot of companies can survive further on. But again, I'll stress, and I'll emphasize that planning has to start from the word go. And this is a good time when a lot of leaders are there, are having the time to think about this thing. And that's where this opportunity lies. Okay? Bring in the right people and get this thing off the ground so that they are able to have a lot more time with themselves to do not only other things that are closer to their heart, and they're able to give more to society and to themselves. I think Vijay will tell you about one more thing that is very important, and that is the sense of satisfaction that a person can get once he's able to hand over and relieve himself, and then he's able to conduct other things that is closer to his heart. Right? That is the biggest gift a person can get in life. I know there's so many people who are out there trying to unburden themselves out of that whole thing. So, I think Vijay coined one of the things that when he calls it center of gravity within oneself. I'm not sure whether I've captured that correctly, but I know it is to do with how to get that center in it. Creation of wealth can happen, but having that center of wealth and being satisfied in life and being happy is very key at this stage.
Interesting.
Thank you, Asha.
Very, very interesting. Sohin, thanks for that. There's one call waiting. We will take a call. But before that, just one last question for this session, which I'm very keen on understanding from all three of you. We talked about the succession planning as a positive outcome from the corporatization. Do you also see other benefits from corporatization in terms of brand building, easier access to funding, managing other stakeholders' interests? How do you see that, Vijay Mistri? Maybe a quick overview on that.
Well, by far, because what's going to happen is you will be able to attract more funding. You will be able to attract the right stakeholders, the right supply chain, the right pipeline of processes. But at the same time, if you start positioning yourself, you'll start getting the right incumbents as well, the right people to help in the leadership in the whole process itself. And it's going to be more systemized, because the most successful businesses, and what Vijay Srinivasan was talking about, the organizations which started with people going door to door to sell, and who have turned into what they are right now, it just goes to show the vision they had, the passion they had, the commitment they had, the curiosity they had, the hunger they had to connect with everybody they came across and to move the ladders. What was the one thing they did? They adapted to the change. They gave away, they let go, their holding, their power, and they let go because they saw a bigger picture. Here we had a company similar like Specsaver, which was started by just a husband and wife. And what happened is right now they've got 2,111 branches, and with turnover of 2.78 billion pounds or something on those lines. But what does that really tell you is that when you start stepping up, it's a different ballgame altogether. And just like what you're saying, the highest leverage, this is what I believe, and this is something I learned from Dr. Ram Charan, is that the highest leverage is your people. If you have the right people, that is what is going to leverage. And if you start looking into the corporatization model itself, what's going to happen is you're going to attract the best of the talent. And this is the time, this is the best time right now during this pandemic period which we are going through, this 6 months or 7 months of window, where there could be this big opportunity for organizations to collaborate, look into this corporatization. And because it's going to be like a hockey stick growth model from what we see in many industries, and it's going to happen. So to answer your question, not only attracting funds, but it will also attract the best of people, employees, and the whole process itself. Asha?
Very interesting. Vijay Srinivasan, you're a marketing professional, so I would like to address this to you. Do you think corporatization is going to enhance the brand, thereby empower the sales and marketing team to make a better job in terms of scaling the company going forward? So owners can actually look at it as a tool to take the company to the next level?
Yes, Asha, thanks for the question. I think the main thing is that, I can bring an analogy to it. For example, if you look at the mutual fund industry, you won't only invest in a mutual fund, which is basically run by SBI or this thing. You will look at the fund manager, and then you put your money there because you know what the quality of that guy is, and then you invest. Similar thing. Now, once this pandemic goes away, if you go to a bank tomorrow for loans, they'll say, okay, they will analyze the company, as they do every other company. But you go with this extra, the oomph that Vijay Mistri was talking about, was you go with good people and say, these are the people on board and this is what we're doing. And when they see organization, banks will lend to you and you will get better rates and everything else to, work towards it. Now, in terms of branding and this thing, yes, it works in a very good way, because that 25 years of you working hard and getting a solution is sometimes already there. When you get a professional, he comes with all these ideas, which people have tried and tested and worked and not worked and everything. So they come with those ideas. So you can straight away leapfrog. So it's very simple, like, once upon a time to lay telephone cables, you had to lay copper cables everywhere and do all those things. Nowadays, you don't even have to do that. Countries who are just now developing and going to the next stage, they can straight away leapfrog technology. They can go with optical fiber networks. You don't even need the copper thing anymore. So, these kind of, it's a similar analogy. It's like you leapfrog your business to a separate level. So I think it will increase the branding of the company, the standing of the company, and also you would get a more professional kind of way of doing things. And also, if the big companies don't hire people to get all the ideas. The marketing and the branding people don't actually come up with all ideas. What they do is they make the correct brief and they brief the agency. So the agency knows exactly what they're looking for and what the target market is and give the parameters. So it's not like you are hiring experts for the whole thing. They are experts at knowing how to get the job done, or fantastic project managers.
Right.
So that leads to your success of your company.
Yeah, interesting. So, any points that you can add as why MSMEs should be looking at corporatization as a tool for their growth strategies, maybe in terms of innovation or technology upgradation, credibility in terms of stakeholders' perceptions? Anything that you would like to add from your country's perspective?
I think the most important aspect that I'm looking at here is bringing the foresight of making sure that we are going the right path. And if there are any hurdles that are coming our way, these companies are able to detect these hurdles well in advance. The pandemic was something that no one predicted, right? But sometimes some other level of preparedness can actually help. So, for example, a lot of diverse views can be brought in as to what is going to happen after this pandemic, and a lot of people are thinking about that. But bringing them to the fore and how the companies can actually take advantage from these new ideas and innovative ways of dealing with things is what needs to be taken part of. Yeah. So there are various things that already in Kenya that are going to be happening, okay, as we go along. Like, for example, I'll tell you, e-learning or homeschooling, I think is going to be taking off at a serious rate, because already all the schools are on e-learning, yeah, and all the parents are now looking at how do they get a reduction on the fees, because a lot of investment is being taken in the form of how to put up the technology at home. Okay? So these are the kind of things that are going to be happening. In companies, for that matter, they need to look at very, very critically is that how are they going to allow employees from enabling them to work from home more and more so. I'll tell you something, and I've seen a lot of companies lose out on a lot of talent. And I'll tell you, this is touching on the women work, lady or women worker as well as entrepreneur. They're not able to work because they have to take care of the biggest job, which is how do they take care of the household and the children, right? Now, imagine if the technology is enabling these ladies and women from taking care of the household from home, and they're able to input into the companies from there. That's going to touch a lot of lives. It's going to improve a lot of companies. I mean, it's going to happen. And this is something that needs to be looked at by a lot of companies. But of course, with right systems and right processes that are in place, this can be put in very nicely. Okay, and that does not apply to only women. I mean, there are so many men who would like to actually spend more time with their families.
Yeah.
So also enabling them as well. So it's going to benefit the entire dynamics of entire demographics. Yeah. So this kind of thing that needs to be prepared. So that diverse view is going to enable the company to put in the right blueprints and processes to enable these kind of things to work properly in place. So that foresight is very important, and having a independent assistance from outside can help these MSMEs to go in the right path. A lot of these SMEs are losing the track in the midst because of simple issues which can be tackled, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I have lost contact with the participant who wanted to ask a question. I have unlocked. If he can join in, he can join. But I guess we have covered a lot of points today. I'll just give a half a minute to each of you for your final thoughts on what you thought about this session, and if there's anything that you would like to add before we wind up. Vijay Mistri.
All right, I'll just quickly start and take 30 seconds of the time.
Thank you very much. More.
No. I want to. I just want to condense this, but look, I think it was very inspiring. I think the collaboration which we have had from Vijay Srinivasan, Sohin, and you has just brought a different level of mindset, a different level of thinking altogether. And one or two points which I would like to just bring forward to the fore is that some of the MSMEs may not be able to recruit full time. Now is the time they can look into the convergence model and look into how they can outsource some of these contributors, key contributors to their strategy, to their governance mechanisms, or to the whole aspect of driving capability and corporatizing as well. So that ability is still there. So affordability is on one side, but it's important to try looking at different concepts, because globally you can outsource now. And the other aspect which I would like to bring forward is that all companies must look at businesses slightly differently. It's just like, think of a football game. If you look at, and by the way, I'm talking about Manchester United and Liverpool here in the United Kingdom, that sort of a football. You'll note that after 45 minutes, there is a coach, and that coach is going to give feedback. Similarly, for any company, there must be ongoing feedback. That should spiral the growth. It will help them spiral the growth with live feedback, with mentoring, with the right coaching. Organizations will see a different dimension of growth altogether. This is the opportunity for them. Thank you, Asha.
Excellent. Thank you, Vijay. Vijay Srinivasan, final thoughts?
Yeah. So it's my thoughts is I think more of a positive note. I think pandemics and the crisis keep coming. So it's not that it's never come up, and people bounce back always. And if you take a country like India, it's bounced back with so many issues, from independence struggle to plagues to this, to a country now which is an emerging nation now, which is very soon on a very fast track. So there is always light at the end of the tunnel. My suggestion would be to take the time to introspect where we are, what it is, and why, if we are in a not a very good situation, which I'm sure most of us are, because we couldn't predict this, but to see what positive steps you can take forward. And one of the things I think is about looking at corporatization. And as Vijay Mistri smartly said, it's like you can, outsource right now, and you can have the best talent available. You don't have to go full time. You can go contracting, you can go part-time, and you can take it for a limited period, but experiment in that, and you will see the value automatically. If you get the right people, you will see the value immediately to your business, and your thinking and your level of thinking just goes to a different level going forward. Thanks, Asha.
Thank you, Vijay. So, Hen, your final thoughts, please.
I think the two Vijay's have summarized it very well. I will just say a couple of words. Is that, look, at the end of the day, it's not all doom and gloom, I think. this period has all given us time to think what we need to do next, and we really need to go deep into ourselves and ask that big question: what do we want to do next? Do we want to keep on having a fight with nature? Okay, that's one big question. And also another important thing is, yes, businesses are important. They are livelihoods, and MSMEs thrive on that. But how can we work in such a way where we are collaborating with the entire globe? Okay, we are bringing the right experts into the business without having to incur major costs. This has actually taught us we don't need to travel to, say, for example, India, and impart the knowledge that we have. And Asha, thanks to you for this bespoke show. We have gotten this fantastic opportunity to share our experiences, and we want to work together with organizations and entities whereby we keep on imparting the experience that we have. Again, I say that it has taught us that it does not incur major costs of flying. Again, all those things are creating a lot of impact on the environment. A lot of these carbon counts are increasing, and you can see during this period the nitrogen dioxide levels dropped. Like, for example, one of the most beautiful things that I can tell you is sitting from Limuru here, very close to my house. We could see Mount Kenya very clear with a lot of snow at the tip. Now, imagine all that had gone down. Now, look at the beauty of all this. And I'm telling you, this is what I'm saying is the silver lining at this whole big cloud that is around us right now. That we can live in harmony with nature and do a lot of creativity, innovation, utilizing technology, and grow our businesses in a very nice and peaceful way. Thank you very much, Asha.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, it had to take a pandemic for us to learn so many lessons, but it was good. It taught us all that. I'd like to, I couldn't have asked for anything more. The three of you have made my day. I think it's one of the best shows that I have hosted, and I'm very grateful to all of you for that. Thank you so much for your valuable time. I'd like to end on one note saying that if the world throws lemons at you, make lemonade. Yes. I think that's the story, model of the story.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay Srinivasan. Thank you, Vijay Mistri. Thank you, Sohin Shah.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.